there, it's Natasha and thank you so much for joining me today. This video is going to be a little bit about how we can create these gorgeous cards without using any ink at all. So I have a few bottles of paint which I have had for a long time. And I definitely believe in using the products that we have to get the most out of them. So this video today, I'm going to use these paints and I'm going to put them down on a piece of scrap paper. If you have a non-stick sheet, you could pop it down onto there as well. However, I just put these scrap pieces aside. And my kids really enjoy cutting these up for all sorts of bits and pieces, so that made another good use out of it. But definitely you could do it on a non-stick sheet. I'm going to roll my brayer into the center of the two colors, and then I'm going to pop it down onto a sheet of 4 1/4 by 5.5 inch paper. This is the 110 pound Recollections paper, and I'm just going for a really nice smooth blend. Now I must admit these two color blues are pretty close together, but I still really like how they look, and they did blend beautifully using the brayer and no hard work at all. So this is kind of instead of ink blending in my mind. And after I've shown you how I've created some of these, I'm going to turn some of them into cards, so you'll be able to see those at the end of this video as well. Now I am going to I am speeding through this, so just remember that I have sped up parts of this process, and that is the wonderful thing about getting to edit things. But I did have a lovely time just choosing a couple of colors for each one and then using my brayer to roll out the colors just a little bit so that my brayer was covered, and then I just kept going back and forward on my piece of paper until I was happy with the blend, or I was happy with how it looked. And just remember that not every little bit of your paper has to be covered or perfect. You can die cut out of these, you can use them in lots of different ways. I have quite a few videos on my channel now of how you can use backgrounds and different ways to use backgrounds, so if you're interested, have a look at those. And again, we are just creating more gorgeous backgrounds, but instead of ink blending, this to me is much faster and still really fun and enjoyable. So now I'm going to do a blue and green one, and I was kind of stuck with the same pattern. I was really happy with just doing kind of one color to the left and one color to the right, but I thought that I would give it a go and try something a little bit more as well. Now, I completely understand that this technique is nothing mind-boggling or nothing crazy, but it really is just about finding another way to use our supplies, or using the supplies to find a way that we can create a similar look to something else. And there are lots of gorgeous ink blended pieces out there, and I love ink blending as much as the next person. I truly, really do, and I find it really enjoyable. However, I also find it enjoyable to kind of do things like this, which are a little bit quicker, and I get great results from. So it's nice to know sometimes that there are different options and more than one option, and I guess that's what my channel is about, is trying to give lots of different options to use the products that we choose to invest in, whether that be cheaper products like some of the paints that I have here, or more expensive ones like dyes and things, making sure that we get really good value for money. So I had enough paint there to do 2 different versions of this bluey green one, so I went ahead and just did a couple. At this point I was really just going to make enough backgrounds until I kind of felt happy and was done playing. Now this one here, I'm going to shift the brayer down just a little bit and roll out my first little blend there, roll it back into the paint, turn it around, and then that way I have a nice kind of orange yellow look. And these backgrounds dried super fast because there is such a thin layer of paint on the paper, so that made it nice and easy, and this was a really quick process to create, and then a really quick process until I could move on, so I did appreciate that as well. Now this one here, I kind of went for the 3 different little colors, and then while I was doing this I thought, why couldn't I do this on a diagonal as well? So just finding a couple of different ways to kind of essentially do the same thing but come out with an ever so slightly different look. So I put down my piece of paper again and then used the paint that's left on my little scrap piece of paper, and then this is where I think, oh yeah, I could do it at an angle. So I change it around and create a nice little diagonal design. If you didn't have a brayer to do these techniques, then it would also be really fun to sponge on the colors and blend them that way. I've done that before and that works well. I have a video on my channel just a couple of videos ago using some sponge rollers, some foam rollers, and they would be really good with paint as long as you kind of wash them out afterwards. That would be fun. Lots of different options there. Now this is going to be my last one that I'm going to show you before we are going to kick into getting the cards done. And this one I decided to do the kind of 3 pattern as well. So I'm going to have the blue in the middle and then blend these together. It kind of makes like a purple in between the blue and the burgundy kind of color. So yeah, just lots of different options. I had a whole lot of fun, and as I said, I didn't have to wait long at all until these were dry. So that made it nice and quick and easy, which is what I like in my card making. So I'm all done with creating these, and this is what happened when they were dry. This is the results, and this one here, I know reds are really hard to pick up, but again, these are a gorgeous blend, the darker one up the top and lighter down the bottom. And I thought I would turn these into a few cards for you guys. Now, if you are interested in any of the supplies that I'm using today, they will be linked down below unless they have been discontinued or I can't find them anymore. But other than that, they will definitely be linked below. Now this first card is definitely kind of the most simple. I'm going to create a gorgeous little frame here on the blue and the green background. So I'm using the Hero Arts Infinity die set. These are obviously the rectangles, and I'm just using 2 rectangles. I wasn't sure how thick I wanted the frame to be, but once I kind of popped these down there, I thought actually I wanted it to be an ever so slightly thinner frame. So this is how I create all of my frames. I just use a little bit of low-tack tape in each corner, usually a couple of pieces, and I have the cutting side face up. And this way I get a really nice even frame all the way around. So I hold these in place and just make sure that there is some low-tack tape that is going to catch the frame that we put on the inside as well. Press these down, and then now I can kind of measure these up and move it around so that all of the sides look nice and even, and then I have a nice frame that I can run through as many times as I need to, and all of the frames will line up and be exactly the same size. So for this card, I did think that I would use some gold cardstock. This is kind of like gold mirror cardstock, and I have got that gorgeous little frame ready to go. Then I'm also going to use I think it's the Curvy leaves from Pinkfresh Studio. But basically, if you have a look in your stash, any foliage dies will work really well here. You could even stamp out your frame and then stamp out the foliage as well, just depending on what you have on hand. But I die cut out the leaves in exactly the same gold cardstock. And then I did just this three dies in this set here, but I actually just cut out all the largest die there. And that way I can cut them down to kind of suit and fit exactly what I want. So I also know that there are kind of designs out there which are similar to this, which is kind of a whole die that you don't have to put together your own little bits and pieces, but I always prefer to be able to modify all of my dies and things, and it gives me far more options, which I love and appreciate when I am card making. Now, just to attach all of that little foliage, I'm going to put some extra thin little double-sided tape. I could use liquid glue, but I felt like this wouldn't be quite as messy when I wasn't sure where I would be attaching things on. So I'm just going to pop this on all 4 sides, and this will give something to cling to, the foliage to cling to when I pop it in place. Now, you could also use some Stick It double-sided adhesive on the back of your rectangle before you cut it. That would work out well as well if you didn't have the really skinny double-sided tape. Now I'm just fitting the little bits of foliage in, and I'm cutting them all as to exactly how I want them to be so that all of these dies work for me, and just moving them around and trying them in all sorts of different places. At this point I have taken the release paper off the back of the double-sided tape, and so that's why I'm able to just tuck the leaves underneath and they stick there and stay in place. So I'm just going to pop these all around. I am trying to bear in mind that I want a sentiment to go kind of in the upper right kind of side of this card, a little bit in the middle, I guess. So I'm thinking about that when I'm popping all of this foliage around. And I do have one of those leaves overhanging at the bottom there, which I thought I kind of liked the look of, but the more I played around with it, the more I just wanted to cut it off. So I'll do that in just a minute. But I'm putting some liquid glue onto the back of this, and just because it's paper on the back of that gold mirror cardstock and it's going straight down onto the painted front, then this will adhere really nicely. I use the Ranger Multimedium in the matte finish. That's the liquid glue that I use in those little bottles. And then this gold cardstock, I know that gold is quite hard to kind of pick up on camera how gorgeous it is, but I really do like this simple card design. It really worked out well, and I like how it looked in the end. Then, as I said, I'm not going to use any ink at all with this. So just find a sentiment that you are able to die cut, and I die cut it out in the same gold cardstock. This is the celebration words from Tim Holtz. There are lots and lots of different celebration words in there, and a really nice scripty font. I'm just adding the same liquid glue onto the back of these, and then I am able to just pop them down. As I said, they're going to adhere really nicely to that painted background, and I have not forgotten about the little dot that goes on top of the eye here, so don't worry, I will make sure that I have remembered that. But this is a really nice simple layout. As I said, it took no ink at all, just some die cuts and all of that paint with the brayer. So it was really easy, and I'm going to kind of step it up in my next card a little bit. It looks a little bit fancy, but honestly it was really easy to create, and it was really fun using up 2 of these panels on one card. So that is this card pretty much finished. I'm going to pop it onto a 4 1/4 by 5.5 inch card base. I'm doing my little trick here with all of the little tabs out the side, and this means that I can line it up really nicely. When I've got it all lined up, I just press in the middle where that little bit of exposed adhesive is, and this way I have a gorgeous white border all the way around. Now this is really, really shiny, and I really like the look of it against the blue and the green in the background. And whilst I'm here, I do really want to apologize. This is the longest video I have ever put on my channel. So I do try and keep my videos really short. I like them being short because that's what I find I have time to watch as a mum and as a crafter. I just have little snippets of time, and I prefer a really nice quick video. So that's what I try and produce for you guys. This video today is definitely not that, so I do apologize, but I wanted to make sure that I fit in a couple of versions of these cards so that you guys were able to see a couple of different ways that we used these gorgeous backgrounds that we created. Speaking of, I'm going to come back to the pile that I have left and kind of see which ones I want to use now, and I had so much trouble choosing what I wanted to do. I knew I wanted to use this orange one here, but I wasn't sure if I wanted the background color to be. So I picked the green for the meantime, but I'm going to come back and show you what I did with these later on, and that you could use lots of these different options. Now this set here is the Tim Holtz, I think it's called Leaf Prints, and it has these 4 different leaves, and then it has these 4 different outlines so that you can kind of die cut these in lots and lots of different ways. But I'm actually just going to use the inside dies for today. Now I'm not going to kind of make you walk through this complete entire process, but basically on the front panel here, the panel that I know is going to be at the very front, I am just using some of my low tack tape to tape down these leaves, and some of them are going to be hanging off the edge. I do want to make this look like a complete kind of panel rather than have all of the edges intact, but basically I'm just turning them around so that they go in all different directions, and I'm going to cover my entire panel like this. These painted backgrounds die cut beautifully, and the leaves are kind of intricate, but they pop out really nicely, and they leave all of those gorgeous little veins and things. Of course, you could use any dies for this. You could use word dies, you could use shape dies, you can use any dies that you have in your stash, and this would create a really nice kind of see-through panel. I just really like how these leaves, the veins are intact, and I guess it kind of just adds a little bit more detail. They feel like a very detailed die cut. So I'm going to pop these all around the outside, and as I said, I'm going to make them come off the edge, hang off the edge. And it's definitely personal preference if you like that look or not. But I'm going to speed through this, and you can see now I have done my whole entire panel, and I'm going to move on to finishing off this card. I've got all the little bits poked out. I do just want to quickly show you that even though I thought I had kind of picked the green at the beginning that was going to go behind this, look how many of these panels and colors behind this would look so nice. So I really was struggling at this point to kind of choose which one I would want to go in front. This here is a gorgeous kind of summery autumny look with the reds behind it. All of these look really nice. I love this version here, but actually I did want to go with a little bit more of the greens and blues behind it, but they honestly all look really, really nice. Oranges and blues are of course opposite, so that's going to always work really nicely. I went with the greens, and I'm going to trim down this little panel just a little bit, and actually as long as your blade is nice and sharp, the cutter is going to cut through these fine. I cut a little bit off all of the sides so that I kind of kept the part in the middle that I wanted to be the main focal feature. I did just want to show you one little trick in a minute about what happens when you kind of have too much empty space for one of the die cuts. You can see in the top right hand corner there, that's just to the left of the screen, there was probably a little bit too much that got cut off that one, and so the die cut doesn't look very complete. So I'll show you how I fix that in just a little minute. Now these are the 1/8 inch foam strips sheets that come from scrapbook.com, and these are really, I think they're either 8 or 9 inches long, and there are 5 sheets of them that come in this pack. There are honestly heaps of them, so I'm really excited to finally receive this in the mail, and I am just going to kind of pop these little foam strips in between all of my leaves here so that it is nicely supported and it gives it that little shadow effect on top of my green background. Now of course, if you have foam dots or foam squares or foam anything, you can pop these up, or you could just lay this down completely flat and you would still get a really gorgeous look from this. Now I cut down my background panel there to be the same size as my die cut panel, so just to line it up nicely, I'm just going to put it in the corner of my stamping platform, and then that way all of the corners are perfectly lined up. But you can see that there is quite a gap there on that top right hand leaf, so I'm actually just going to take a random scrap. It's not even meant to be from this one, but if I just pop it on and then trim it off with my scissors, it gives it a little bit more detail and kind of fills in some of that blank space so it looks a little bit more complete up the top, and I have a really nice border all around. So it's those little details that can sometimes make all the difference. Now I'm going to glue this down onto a 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 inch card base, and because this is kind of a really, I think this is like a gorgeous intricate kind of background as is, I'm going to keep the sentiment really, really simple, and honestly you could choose any sentiment for this type of card as well. The white piece of oval cardstock is just a scrap piece that was in my scrap pile, so I'm going to stamp it out on that, and I am using the Word Fragments stamp set. As I said, you could pick your sentiment for this one, but this one for me was just going to be a thinking of you card, and that's why I chose not to have the red and the bright kind of right behind this panel, because I wanted it to just be toned down just a little bit, whereas I thought that other look was like a really summery, happy kind of happy birthday card, whereas I knew that I needed this one to be a little thinking of you card, so that's why I went with the greens background. I did cut kind of a little point on it, but I end up cutting that off because I don't like the look quite as much, and I'm going to pop this right in the center of my card, but it is kind of a little bit stark. It's very white in comparison, so I'm going to help that out by adding a few little Nuvo drops. This is actually the Colourpops drops from scrapbook.com, and they work very, very similar to the Nuvo drops. You could use either, or you could put on a few little gems or a few little enamel dots that would work really well as well. And that is my card finished for today. So I hope you enjoyed both of these cards. I hope you enjoyed the creating process, creating these gorgeous ombre looks with the painted brayer backgrounds, and I hope that this is something that has inspired you to give this a go. If you do end up giving this a go and you would like to share your creations with me, my Facebook page is the best way to do that. I will leave links to that down in the description box below. We are so lucky to have a fantastic supportive community, so I would love to see your versions of these, and I really, really appreciate you being here and watching for this extra long video today. I apologize, and I will keep them shorter in future. Take care. Thanks. Bye.